welcome to tonight's meeting of the Hand-Eye Supply Curiosity Club. We're your hosts this evening. I'm Tobias Browinger, and this is Will LaColma. Together we have a number of curious and exciting topics to share with you.
As attendees of the Hand-Eye Supply Curiosity Club, you are all now members, provided you adhere to our philosophy. Ex Curiositas Scientia. We pledge to learn without prejudice in pursuit of our mutual goal, perpetual noviceship. We admit that it is impossible to know everything about anything, and thus we remain perpetually curious and perpetually novice.
This is our flag and our mascot, Franklin. The lightning bolt represents the receipt of knowledge, the enlightenment of illumination, the resonance of truths understood. It awakens and excites us and makes us hungry for more. And now, let's give a warm Curiosity Club welcome to Brian Mitchell of Delta Chop Shop.
My name is Brian. Delta Chop Shop's my bike shop. It's been a passion, love of mine for, I guess, as long as I can remember. Been on motorcycles my whole life, particularly the Harley Davidson. My grandfather kind of embedded into my head at an early age American products, and Harley was his bike of choice, so therefore it got embedded into me. And my style is a little different. I'm not real big on fancy things. Simplicity is kind of, if it doesn't have to go on the bike, it doesn't belong on the bike, in my opinion. So, for instance, this bike, this is my personal bike. It's a Buell motor, which is a Harley. It's a bobber. It's a Harley motor. It's like a Sportster motor that their rendition of a sport bike. So, just for instance, simplicity, the frame serves as a oil bag on this particular bike. So I like gaps and spaces. I like the motor to be the focal point. I don't want a bunch of garbage all over the motorcycle. It's artwork to me. So I want you to be able to look at it and just kind of focus on a few individual items, the motor being the first. The oil will come through here. It goes through one filter, down, circulates through the sump. It's got two filters on it just to keep it good and clean and cool. This bike, the air-cooled bikes, they run hot. All of my parts I hand make. If I don't make them, I buy American made. I'm not going to go through a catalog and just order a bunch of stuff just to put it on there. I take my time. These bikes take time to build. They're not cookie cutter bikes. Each one kind of has its own story. This is a 1970 Shovelhead. It was a police bike. So the frame is a stock frame on this one. I just chopped the rear of it and relocated the shocks mounting point to drop it down to lower it. This particular tank, this bike originally would have huge oil bags and battery boxes sticking out here. So that's something I don't like. I want to create those spaces. So this serves as fuel and oil. So I butterflied it. I still have to plumb it and all that, but it just cleans it up. All things, and I'm also a woodworker, so I like to incorporate some cool wood pieces. This is teak, and these pieces, they're not done yet. There's still some more to go, but they'll be teak side panels. I like metals, brass in particular, that's my favorite. So if I can turn something brass, all my spacers, all my foot pegs, they're all turned. I don't do anything fancy with the paint. As you can tell, there's not going to be any airbrushing on my bikes. I do line work. I like flake, simple stuff. I don't outsource anything. Nothing's farmed out other than powder coating and like major engine work. I don't have boring bars. I'm not set up to do any lower end stuff. So if I split the cases, I'll outsource that. But all of my paint, all of my leather, all of my fabrication, it's all done in-house. The bars are all bent. Everything's made from scratch. This stuff all comes in as straight pipes, and this brass will come in a 12-foot section, and I just manipulate it and turn it and make what I want out of it. Let's see if there's any other key points. I'm not real big. This particular bike, I did use the front of this front end is off the Buell, so it's an inverted sport bike front end. So it's got an aggressive front end, which is important. You need to have a stable front end if you're going to run a rigid. One of my other bikes, rigid bike, had a Springer front end, and it looks cool, but it's a little squirrely. So, before I go any more, are there any questions? Go ahead.
Just for everybody, what do you mean when you say you turn down all of your own parts?
Well, these particular parts like this, these are turned. When you on a lathe, these will be turned.
Yeah.
So you'll chuck it into your lathe, and it all comes in. I actually also take about 5/1000 off to get the diameter that I want, and then they're turned, they're knurled, and then they're scored. So all this stuff is turned. The brass on the floorboards is turned. Parts like that you can turn, spacers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Other parts sometimes, fabricate, weld, whatever it takes.
Who did your frame on the Buell?
That's a one-off. We did that.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, I'm not gonna take credit. This part here, this is off the Buell, the rear end here.
Right, where it mounts.
Yeah.
Oh, so you splice that, so you just like.
It's cut. Yeah, cut wedged. Yeah.
That's cool.
And then the front end, and so I access the motor. I use the motor, the front end, a very small portion of the frame, and the wheels.
Did you use the head tube off the original frame?
No.
This looks like you're raked out.
Yeah, no. No. Yeah, it's raked out more. Yeah. The rake and trail's a little, it works out. Like I was telling you, when you hit a curve, this is not the first bike you want to hop on and try to ride. Straight away it's cool, it's perfect, but when you turn, you gotta.
Can you tell us a little bit about your process, like when you find a bike that you want to chop or?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I'm not going to go through a magazine and pick out a frame, pick out this and that. I would rather take an original bike, specifically an older bike, basically a basket case bike. I'd rather take that, bring it into my shop, tear it down into hundreds of parts, and build it back the way that I want. So typically, my bikes are going to be low and they're going to be streamlined. One way or another, I'm always going to find a way. I wanted this bike to be heavy and bulky up front, and I wanted it to glide down and narrow towards the back. So I'll take, for instance, this bike, when I got it, it was probably almost not quite twice as heavy as it is now, but it had so much stuff on it. Tore everything off, figured out in my head kind of the look that I wanted to go for, and then from there, like I said, I'll chop the frame. I'll get the frame set up first, and I'll get the rolling chassis. So I'll get the basic bones of the bike the way that I want it, and then from then I'll figure out, okay, do I have to change any mounting points on the motor or trans? Is everything going to line up with the rear wheel, the sprocket, and all that kind of stuff? So I'll go from there. I'll go to the engine, the trans, and I'll kind of get everything mocked up. And then after that's all done, I'll pull all that back apart. I'll finish any fabrication, and then all the finished parts, like the finish will go on the metals, powder coating will go out. I'll put everything back together and then wire it, plumb it, and you got a finished bike. So I would rather take an original motorcycle. I would rather take a 77 Ironhead, a 70 Shovelhead, a WL, EL, old bike, and use those parts, use those original parts, and just put my twist to it, as opposed to just ordering something and bolting a bike together. I won't do that.
So like would a customer come to you and buy something you've already built and just out of your own vision, or would they come to you and be like, I kind of have this idea, like, can you build this for me?
Both.
Or,
Both. To a certain degree. I have blinders on to a certain degree, so I know what I will do and what I won't do. I'm not going to put 280 or 300. I'm not going to put a car tire on the back.
right.
But I got a guy here I built a bike for. He came to me and he didn't have to say much. He said, these bikes are cool. Build me a bike, So, but he had some ideas. He had some things that he wanted, and yeah, absolutely. Taylor, another guy that I met at a show, like Tyler, he talked about me building a bike for 2 years, and it finally came about. He had the funds and stuff, and we sat down, we had a beer. It didn't take long. He just kind of said, hey, here's a few important things. He brought me a 2008, which I will not do this again. He brought me a 2008 Sportster that has 5 computers, and I like to strip things down. I don't want wires everywhere. I don't want turn signals. I don't want all this crap. Well, you got to have them on these new ones.
So you just got a Mac and just mounted it.
Oh, dude, I was so stoked. I built this bike. It was bitching. It was cool. I go to start it up and it won't run. So I got to figure out how to put the Speedo back on that looks cool. Speedo's a computer. I got to figure out how to get the ECM dialed with the TSSM and all this other garbage that, on these new bikes. But needless to say, we were talking and he's like, I want this, I want this, I want this. So I took his fairly new 2008, chopped it up into pieces and tore everything off that I could, and it looked pretty cool when it was done. So yeah, I'll listen. Definitely, I want the customer to be happy. But if I can't feel comfortable and enjoy what I'm doing, then I'll just say, hey, there's another builder out there for you. It's just if he wants me to build the bike and then he's gonna take the bike and he wants a bunch of skeletons and skulls and naked ladies airbrushed on it, and I'll just say you probably need to go somewhere else. So, yeah.
Can you describe your process if you're going to do your own frame, or if you're going to weld on a hardtail to an existing frame and break out the neck tube, about how you go about taking those measurements and making the jig to make everything square and straight?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very precise. If you're gonna build your own, now taking an existing frame that was a shock mounted frame and making into a hardtail, that's the first one I've ever done like that on that Sportster, and it was a little tricky. Because you've got a small margin of error. Everything's got to be pretty close, thousandths. So on that, I built wooden jigs, and I built wooden jigs to know when I take that tubing to my tube bender exactly how to get the radius, because you're doing double radius. I had to do a double radius. I had to come this way, and then I had to go that way, and they both had to be almost perfect. And then I notch them, I bung them, and then I weld them. But if you're starting from scratch on a frame like this, you've almost got to, you can do it, you can build your own jigs, it just takes longer.
So you're not bending your own tubes?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You are?
Yeah, bending on tube, yeah, everything. Absolutely, yeah. But you almost have to have a frame jig, and you've got your frame table, you've got your frame jig, you've set everything up, and it's just a matter, you bend your tubing, you get the same radius. The tube bender has two dials on it. Each time you go, you just make sure those dials are set exactly the same, and you make sure your tube's exactly the same length. You start the point that you have the notch point on has to be the same on both when you start your bend.
So the jig, that's your final cross check.
Yeah, the jig is what you do when you get everything bent up. The jig is where the jig holds it. You only have two hands. The jig holds everything, and there's mounting points, and those points have to match up. And it's like kind of like a puzzle. If it doesn't fit right, it's not the right piece, or you got to manipulate it. You got to do something. So the jig holds it, and then from that point, you'll tack it, and you go around and you tack on the frame. You've got to penetrate enough. You've got to get it hot enough so it penetrates, but you tack it all the way around and several spots, and after you tack it, I tack with the wire feed and I go back with the TIG and then finish it up. And I'll use, like I was telling these fellows earlier, I'll use a lot of industrial parts. This is off of a big industrial shop. This is the filter off the big airline. So I'll take cool like parts. I'll use parts, industrial parts if they'll fit somewhere. I'll use automotive parts if they'll go on somewhere. Excuse me. Just different things. Like there's going to be two of these mounted on the back of the bike for fuel for a longer trip, because you only have, so much fuel. So I'll do stuff like that. Like I said, I do all my own leather work. It's not, there's a lot of guys out there that do a lot better, but I'm not looking for the fancy stuff. It's just real basic.
Is that kind of like because so many of these bikes were just made in somebody's garage, and that's kind of like the look that
No, to me, here's my outlook on it. How cool it's just, to me, if I wanted something done that I don't have the talent to do, and I went to somebody that was a craftsman or somebody that had a vision, I would, a tattoo artist. I mean, I want to go to one guy,
Yeah.
do it all.
Yeah.
I don't want one guy doing my shading. I don't want one guy, or that's not a real good example, but it's just, to me, it's cooler is to go to one guy, have that one guy do everything,
Yeah.
and then, it adds more value. Everything's done by hand. Nothing is coming off an assembly line.
How do you get the leather?
A lot of practice. I never took a class, so I get better every time. I mean, the first few were pretty bad, and I bought some of the tooling, and the other tools I made. So, I mean, if there's a certain design or something, like the way that I got all these circles around here, I just made a die for it, and it takes time. You have these little tools, and I draw it out first. I'll sketch it out, and then you just go around, just kind of tapping and beat. If you hit too hard, it'll go through. If you don't hit hard enough, it won't accept. So it just takes time.
Do you draw your plans for the bikes too?
Yeah, I'll sketch something out. Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes I won't though. Sometimes it's just in my head. Yeah.
Do you usually find a frame or a bike that you want to work with first and then sketch it out, or do you sketch something out and then go find?
You know what I like the best? I like my ultimate build would be just like he did, just like a lot of other guys do. They bring me bikes and they look pretty bad. They just, I wouldn't ride that, dude. And then I like to take it from that to when they come and get on it, and it's just like, that's bitching.
Okay.
That's awesome. So if I can take an existing bike and bring it into my shop, do my thing to it, put my touch on it, and then give it back to the customer, the finished product looks nothing like when it came in. It looks like it's a whole different bike. Tyler's the first Honda that I ever did, and it was a little different for me because there was a few things that, I had to learn, but I saw this bike. I was coming home from Moses Lake one day, and I saw this bike on 84, and I was driving. I don't see well without my glasses, and I just saw this guy, going down the road, and I'm like, dude, that's a bitchin' bike, it's a cool Harley. And I looked in my rearview mirror, and I said, that's Tyler. So I waited 30 minutes, or I called him, and then about 30 minutes later, he stopped and he called me. I'm like, dude, you fooled me, man. Yeah. So it's just things like that. I mean, like when I was unloading this bike, Tobias and I were unloading, and a guy walked by and said, man, that's art. That means more to me than, anything, because to me it is art. So for somebody to look at it and say that's art, that's the highest compliment. Yeah.
How long does it take you to build a bike?
Well, this took 2 years because I did it nights and weekends and whenever I had the time and money. This is my own personal. So, but if I were to go every day, full bore, a total project, 6 to 8 weeks. Yeah, there's a lot of time. You're hand making everything. Yeah, I mean, a paint job like that can take almost 2 weeks just to, from start to finish, to prep it, to get everything done.
So do you have like a little down wrap booth in your shop space?
I make a little booth, dude. Yeah,
Just kind of like.
it's a little makeshift booth. Yeah, it's just enough to keep a lot of the particles
I mean,
off.
A tank's a lot easier than a whole car.
What's that?
A tank and a headlight's a lot easier than a whole car too.
Well, yeah, I'm not set up to do a car. No, so yeah, it is a lot easier. Paint work is very meticulous. It's prep work is 80% of it, dude. It's you got to know your materials, especially when you're doing a lot of tape work, and it's just line work and stuff, and layers upon layers. I mean, I just finished one that was a high gloss with a flat with a pinstripe. So you've got a primer, you've got a base, you've got a primer, you've got two bases, you've got a flat, you've got a high, and then you've got a pinstripe, and you can't rush it, So that
Hopefully everything will be smooth.
well, see, you can't cut on a flat clear though. You can't cut it, so you can't. I mean, you have to, and that's what takes. You have to set it up so when you spray that flat on, everything kind of lines up, and then if it doesn't line up just perfect, you can hide it with your pinstriping. I use old school enamel pinstriping. That goes on top of all the clear coats.
Can you do all your own striping?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you hand do your striping?
Oh yeah. Do I hand do my striping,
Oh
babe?
my gosh. Do you leave him alone when he's painting a motorcycle tank? Yes.
Yeah.
Do you not wear cute clothes around said paint when you take off? Yes.
And a lot of it's, you know, there's guys that are better painters. There's but there's not a whole lot of guys that'll do it all. And to me, that's what's kind of special, you know, and individual.
Are there many people that do, I don't want to say the same thing as you, but kind of fill similar niches in this area? Like, or is this,
Yeah, there's a lot of good builders in this area. Nash Motorcycles, one of them in Vancouver, they're pretty well known too. They outsource a lot of stuff,
yeah.
and they're big now to where most of their parts are outsourced.
Yeah.
So I don't know. They don't do any of their own paint, but they're good. They build really cool stuff. They do all their own fabrication. They do their motor work and stuff like that. But the paint, the leather stuff, and accessories, and but they have a lot more. You know, I'm a simple operation. They're a lot further along in the process than I am. So
Yeah.
Are the motors fairly stock, or do you?
neither one of these are. A lot of them are stock. You know, yeah, these aren't.
Okay.
Yeah, that's for a night. That's pushing. That's about 88 cubes. That's pushing for a shovel head right at 100 horses and about equivalent foot pounds at the wheel
So not
when the motor was dynoed. So for a bike that old, that's balls. That's good.
Where do you get a dyno back? Because,
I don't have a dyno. I used to work at Ladis.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Dyno there, they have a.
Oh, Ladis has it. Yeah, Ladis Motors they're one of the biggest
Dyno.
dyno.
EDR would have to be written inside.
Yeah, they're one of the biggest dyno setups on the West Coast. Yeah, they got Mike Stegman there, and he's like a world-class engine builder. So, yeah,
What's the? Have you weighed these bikes?
I don't need to weigh them. That's heavier than hell. That's not that bad. This one's probably. See, there's a lot of aluminum stuff on that, a lot of cast on this. You know, the older stuff. So this bike, I would assume before I stripped it down, was probably right around 500 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably close to 300 now. This one, what's that?
Probably more than 300.
I don't think so.
Really?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, maybe right around 300.
Huh. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's actually good.
Yeah, I took a lot of stuff off of it, but I mean, 300 pounds, and it doesn't push as easy. You know, just the whole set. The newer ones are just easy to get around. This one's probably 225, 230.
I bet against it.
I don't know,
My
man.
SD650 is 360 dry.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I can pick that one up pretty easy.
Prove it. You have
Huh? But I mean, you might. I don't weigh them. You know, I know what stock. You know, stock bikes they have all that. I mean, but I don't weigh them after I do my thing to them. I mean, it could be 350. I don't know. So
So just for everybody else, when you say hardtail and when you say, or what does hardtail mean and what's the distinction between them?
no suspension. Yeah, you're going straight. Yeah, your suspension is your rear tire.
Yeah.
So you're going to want to drop your tire pressure lower than almost as low as you can get it and still be safe. You know.
Is that why some people ride with such big rear tires? Like
No, that's just a style. Yeah, those are actually worse on a hardtail. The bigger the tire like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, just so much. Yeah, those are bad. So I mean, there's no suspension on a hardtail, and up until a certain era, all the bikes were hardtail.
Yeah.
You know, suspension didn't come in until later. So you know, I wanted to keep the suspension on this one in case I ever have a rider. So it's pretty tough to ride on the back of a hardtail.
Yeah.
You absorb. It's tough to ride on the seat of a hardtail. You absorb everything.
Yeah.
You know, so you don't want to go, 150 miles. You're gonna want to get off and take a break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is this one going to be for you as well?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I want to have a couple of different cool. I took this one to I took them both to a show not too long ago. Tyler got me into a show, and this bike got so much attention just because it's different and stuff. So I think it'd be important to take it around the show. Plus, this will be my first Magneto. I've never fooled with a Magneto, so I think it'll be cool.
What's a Magneto?
Right here, Magneto timing.
Oh.
As opposed to electric timing points, something like that. Yeah. And I forgot a lot of that stuff back. I'm gonna have to go back through my notes to even see how to do it. I mean, I haven't fooled with it since I went to school, so it's been a long time. But I mean, just stuff like this. When I do all this bead work, I just start. I get in my head what I want to do, and I start at one point, and it's just round stock. It's just round stock mild steel, and all I do is sketch out where I want it laid out, and I just heat it, manipulate it, bend it, tack it, heat it, manipulate it, bend it, and tack it until I get done. And then when I'm done, I'll go around and TIG it to fill it all in. And it takes time.
So how do you make, do you kind of start with like the original tank and then you add those details, or do you actually, that concave shape, do you ever get into that?
Yeah, on both of these. Now I do make tanks, but both of these are manipulated originals. This wasn't. I mean, this was off like a mid-90s Sportster that I just lengthened and did some bead work on it. Changed the filler on it and stuff like this. This was not the original tank, but this was a tank that I had that I cut in half and then made it two separate sections and then butterflied it and then kind of welded it back together to where it would mount up and stay stationary.
Cool.
So it takes a lot of time to make a tank.
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes a lot of time. So if you have something you can work with that you can make your own,
Yeah.
I would prefer to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that a lot of those guys, like sometimes sheet metal can be an enormous setup and a whole.
Yeah, it is. You gotta have English wheels and sandbags, beater bags, and everything, and
Yeah.
it just it takes time. And then everybody asked me, well, why did you turn your exhaust back towards the bike on this one? I don't know. I just wanted to do something different. So.
That's cool.
How do you decide on the color?
How did I decide?
How do you decide?
That's a big deal. I mean, that takes. Actually, this bike here, the metal flake came out of a rattle can on this bike. So this is a Seymour product that's obsolete. They don't sell it anymore. So I sprayed. It's got a PPG primer. It's got a PPG clear coat on it, but and all the others, they're all PPG. But the flake on this came out of a rattle can, and that was tough to do because to get it to lay out even, and so it's not, because you can't really control an aerosol can like you can a gun. But I don't know. I knew that I wanted to go like a gold flake on this, and then I wanted something clean. I wanted I knew I wanted a darker color. The dark blue appealed, and then I wanted to break it with something really bright. So this one's going to be a root beer, like a heavy root beer flake, with maybe like a cream pinstriping, and then a touch of some sort of like violet or something in there somewhere. Yeah.
Customers ask for a specific color, or do you fit it to their style?
Sometimes they do. Yeah, colors. Yeah, stuff like that. Unless it's like pink with flowers. I mean, but yeah, if you got a color you like and you want, and it's your own bike, yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
I'm traveling here. I'm China.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering what is the spirit of American made? That is, everything is been handmade, or you should only choose American made. So, what is the difference between American made or other nations made?
Quality. A lot of the quality, because a lot of the stuff that comes imported, it's mass produced so much, and a lot of parts that you'll actually get that are supposed to supersede and be applicable, they won't even fit, or you have to manipulate them, and that's just not. So aside of the fact that I like to stick with the American made, the motto, it's just the quality is not really, and it's because it's so much, they can make so many parts and get this stuff shot at and sell so much, it costs less, and they bring it over here, and a lot of it doesn't hold up. Yeah.
So you prefer something locally?
If I can't get it, I prefer OE, so I'll go original equipment, and most of the time I can get original equipment parts. Sometimes they're not that same part number, but they'll work for the application. I mean, like a lot of times, this isn't a Sportster motor, but I can use a lot of Sportster parts on this motor. But then, a lot of parts I can make. I mean, so all engine parts and stuff like that, I'm not going to make. I'm not set up, and I don't want the responsibility. That's pretty important stuff. That engine is expanding and all kinds of stuff, so you have to have, it's got to be able to hold torque specs, and you got to have all the right type of, metals and stuff. So I'll buy that stuff. Yeah.
Why Delta?
I'm from the Mississippi Delta.
No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Since each of these are one-offs and you're selling them, what are the safety regulations or legalities? You have to get these checked out before you can sell them.
Well, depending on the year of the bike and stuff, most of them have to go DEQ. I can get away. Most of them don't have turn signals. Some of them only have a rear brake. They've got a brake light. They've got a running light and a headlight. So if I'm building a bike for a friend like Tyler, I'm not too worried about it. He knows what he's getting into, but I have disclaimers. I have paperwork that if a customer, the guy that's in the Army in Texas, I have a lot of paperwork for him to look over and sign, to free. Because
you probably got that. Do you have the VIN number still stamped on the frame somewhere from the original Buells?
Yes, this is a Buell, brother. This is a Buell. This is licensed.
As far as DMV is concerned.
This is a Buell, dude.
Right.
Yeah. So that's that's the way it is. But they're not the safest bikes, but you can safely ride them if you're careful.
I wasn't questioning your safety.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of not the point either.
Yeah.
I meant as someone running.
As far as the cops are concerned, you can use hand signals to turn.
With some states, believe it or not, I got pulled over. The first day I broke this bike out this year, I don't know, it was 6 weeks ago or so, and I was just riding down the highway, and I saw the cop from a distance, and then I saw him pull out of his spot, and I knew right away in the back of my head. I said he's going to get behind me, and he's going to pull me over. Well, we went about 5 miles down the road, and I just said, I'm thinking, do it, just get over with. So he lights me up, and he pulls me to the side, and I'm thinking, okay, what's he going to get me for? My tags are good, everything else. So he was going to get me for my handlebars, because the state of Washington, it's 30 inches from your seat to the lowest point of your bar.
I never heard of that.
Oh yeah, dude. Every state's different. Absolutely. Absolutely. And some states where your license plate is mounted is critical. Now, if the cop, like I said, this is the first time I've ever gotten pulled over. But anyway, I said, get a tape measure because it's under that. Oh no, it's not. Yeah, it's right under that. So anyway, he later told me the real reason he pulled me over is because he thought it was cool and he wanted to talk about it. Yeah. So I gave him a card, and my bike ride was talking to the cop, then I went home. So I mean, other than just the fact that I have a passion for this, if it would be.
One quick question: do you use any computer tools to assist you?
No, dude. It's all. Thank you. I send emails, and I can play emails, and I can get on Facebook. Other than that,
If you're doing a render, you just do pencil and watercolor, or pencil and pen.
if I'm doing a what?
Just a rendering of what you're wanting.
Yeah, dude. That's it. Pencil. Yeah. There's no the lathe. It's all manual. Everything. The tube bender is hydraulic, but it's not a computer. It's 2 dials. You know. So, and would it be easier to get all that stuff? Yeah, it's more expensive, but then again, that's kind of getting out of my. I like to do it the old school way. I mean, like I said, I build a lot of wooden jigs. You don't hear many guys building jigs out. Most of the jigs are metal and stuff. It's a one-time use because once you heat them up and you bend around them, they're toast.
Yeah.
So I just do things the way it works for me.
If you're gonna do metal, if you're planning on making a couple of the same frame.
What's that?
If you're gonna make a couple of the same frame, it's gotta be metal.
I probably won't make a couple of same frames. Yeah, probably won't do it.
Cool. Well, I'm sure you guys have more questions, so you should just come up and check out the bikes and ask them yourself. I just wanted to tell you about the next session in 2 weeks. We have Annie Trambley and Tarika Hannawalt of Watershed Sciences discussing modeling with lasers. Tarika and Annie will give an overview on the basics of LiDAR and how remote sensing technology improves the effectiveness of stream temperature modeling, as well as why this technology matters to the well-being of fish. The presentation will include water quality management in Oregon, LiDAR acquisition and calibration, and heat source modeling
He
applications.
lost me a long time.
It's gonna be really good, and you won't be lost if you go. All right, come out,
Oh, I will.
check out the bikes.
Yeah, thanks, brother.
And you're hot.
I am really hot. I'm spitting out.
So, why Frosty the Snowman?
My daughter wanted me to put that on there, dude. So,
Nice.
yeah. I can't tell you how many times it's tried to fall off, and I'll look down and I'll see it like on its lap, then I'll just grab it and just go home and re-glue it or something. Yeah, the snowman, dude. Yeah. Take as many as you want. Yeah.
Y'all can like them on Facebook too.
Tobias, I don't know if you just hand those out, whoever, whatever you want to do. I mean,
Where's your shop?
the center, Washington.
Okay, that's right. I
Yeah,
see that.
yeah,
I'd love to come out and check it out
Yeah, dude.
sometime. Is that a possibility?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's small. It's about the size of this room.
That sounds awesome. I'd just like to see how you do that stuff. I've always been a little bit interested. Just kind of checking it out.
Yep, much better.
The lathe, the tube bender, the mill machines here in Portland off Columbia Boulevard. I just don't have the room.
Yeah.
So it's at my stepdad's shop. Keep it there. Other than that, everything's in that, just crammed in that little shop. I got so much going on. I need a bigger space, but I mean, right now I'm just moving things like as I need to move them. I just move
And that's
them.
kind of cool. That's a cool thing about having.
One thing I like about it is all my stuff is right there. So if I'm welding, if I'm doing something, I've got all 3 welders right there. I've got the big air compressor, I've got my plasma cutter, and then my big welding table, so I can get it's easy to get to everything, but at times I'm like, dude, this is cramped.
Right.
What's that? That's it. Yeah. Guys will help me every once in a while, but yeah, it's just me. Yeah.
You want it to stay that way?
Well, it can't stay that way and grow. So I've been working on some bigger things too. I've got a series. I'm pretty good friends with the producer and a camera guy for a hot rod magazine and a car show. And I've got some big ideas, and he's buying into it. It's just a matter of getting funding for a show. So, and I've already got all the players in my head. I went to a Harley school in Phoenix. I met a lot of good guys. I got some guys I'm close to that share the same common vision. And so, if I'm ever blessed enough to have something like that happen, I'll pull those guys together. So, but yeah, right now I'm not opposed to people, helping, but it's a matter of funds and
Yeah,
you know.
totally. That's
So I was
cool.
gonna ask, what do you think is like the biggest challenge or like the biggest issue?
Well, I'll answer that two-part. For me, the biggest technical thing, like quote unquote, is electrical, but that's just like the hands-on part.
I'm not
Yeah,
like saying that
skill-
you can, but it's
Well, no,
the
the electrical, just because I try to keep things so simple that a lot of times,
pieces, parts.
yeah, I'm trying to eliminate. Well, I'm trying to eliminate stuff that has to be there. So I've got to try to figure out a way to bypass it. And electrical is easy, but it's hard because you can't see it. You know what I'm saying? You can't. It's not like a tangible thing. You know, I mean, it's just this current that flows through. So probably that, but the whole thing is difficult and challenging because you want it to come out the best possible way you can. So you have to take every step, think about it, digest it, and a lot of times I'll get halfway through a build and I'm not happy. So let's change this up, you know. So it's reworking, absolutely. Oh yeah, and just a lot of things like fender height. I'm very picky. Like just a lot of just the stance of a bike. You want a bike to, you want to look at it and you want it to have a story, like a stance, like oh, it's badass. You know, that just looks so sleek, it's so low, so like it's supposed to look. You know, I mean,
I was
so.
actually looking at
But electrical as far as hands-on. Yeah, absolutely. Business-wise, probably just capital. I mean, just getting enough, you know, equipment. This stuff's expensive, man. Oh, everything. I pay cash, so all my stuff right now that I own, I don't owe a dime. What's that? What? Yeah, each bike, unless it's for me, each bike's to order. Yeah, I'm not, because 10 years ago you could build a bike and I could get 30 grand for this. Okay, that's 10 years ago. A lot of things have changed. The market got so flooded. It was almost like what happened with the housing. Jesse James was on TV. Billy Lane was on TV. Everybody, their mom and dad, doctor, lawyers, big people, little people, cool people. I mean, everybody wanted a bike. So from 1998 to about 2003 or 4, it was just an influx of everybody opened a shop. So that's not the case anymore at all. Most 80%.
What did you end up with?
Oh, it's just 80% of those shops are gone. You know, the guys the bikes that you would pay 30, 40, 50 grand for, you can find on Craigslist for $15,000 now. So it's just things have changed. So yeah, I'm not going to build a bike and just put a bunch of capital into it, let it sit there, and you know, she'll be like, "What the hell did you do that for? You build yourself another bike," you know. So, it's just word of mouth. It's yeah. There's a demand because it's a niche. It's a yeah. So there's yeah. It's not for everybody, but the guys that like it, they like it. Yeah, basically. So you're either like nah or yes, you know. No, not at all. No, this is not even my full-time gig. I do this nights and weekends. Yeah. So this would be the dream. I mean, I'm a contractor, you know, full-time, but I do this nights, weekends. Probably three to four bikes is right now is as much. Yeah, I've done more, but that's before I went into full-time contracting, you know. So, I mean, last year I did 2 bikes. I did Tyler's bike and a guy in Texas. I ship a lot of parts, though. My bars, like I ship a lot of bars to Oklahoma. Yeah, I got a couple of guys, buddies that own bike shops, and they order my bars. Yeah, so I'll ship them bars and stuff like that. Yeah. So that's cool. Thank you. Absolutely. Check us out. Check out the website. You know, there's more bikes on the website, and check it out. Hit me up on Facebook, and you can see current shows and stuff. All the local shows I try to go to. So, you know, I put all the stuff, or she'll put it on Facebook, you know. So, thanks for coming. Appreciate it. All right.
I enjoyed it overall.
I take it all back.
What was your name again? I'm sorry.
I remember this.
Max
He's like,
Lucas.
here, just take it. He's like, we can totally farm that out. We do that. And I was like, okay, great. And then, he's still like, oh, whatever else there was that we used to do that. And the guy was like, yeah, maybe till 6 weeks.
I've never written one.
6 weeks to get them, and it's always
I do appreciate the aesthetics though.
Yeah.
So I ended up calling people, and they're like, how many do you know? It's like 5,000 that he works
I worked for 2 summers when I was 12 and 13, and so that was the day I remember, but
Oh yeah.
I crashed it like 2 days later.
I think that's where I would be.
There's never too many cars on mine. I saved up. I saved up. First, learned about it. Now it's good.
A little more of appreciation for it.
It's a busy life, but
Yeah. Yeah, I had a pretty similar route, I think. Old car that you had to do stuff yourself on.
yeah.
Yeah, I just have to keep reminding us that we're still in our first year. We just in our first year. You know, 'cause it feels like.
Well, I should probably head out. We're talking to you. Probably see you in 2 weeks.
How do you feel?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're good. Like, we had to turn out a few like little things while I was gone. So.
That's what I need to learn to start.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yes, it's always better, but.
I need to start learning how to just say I can't get to.
Yeah.
You know,
How are we trying to transition into that? Like,
We
in the bigger space,
actually
like,
it was like
working more.
a series of photos we have.
How those little things fall
Have the
out.
confidence to trust for your.
Well, that's
Unless it's the smaller things for our
we
existing
know him.
clients.
So we shot him for that club that we put out.
Oh, I just got it. I'm a fellow. No problem. I will say. But yeah, since we turned down those like little things, and then I got back and we kind of caught up, and then I felt like we had a little slow point, you know, where we could breathe, which was okay. But it started making panic a little bit. And then all of a sudden, like, we're really trying to.
Nice to meet you.
Are you serious? Are you still using this?
Gas tank.
Yeah. He's up to scale, right?
It's he embosses it, basically heats it up. It's like a piece of metal.
What about this though?
Same thing. Different tools. This is a lot of this is removing. And
How does it get cut?
anything, charcoal. Some people use beer and use different parts to change the
Okay,
color.
so then he embosses it and then takes a cut.
Yeah, or sometimes the heat will change it. If you burn it, yeah, in different temperatures and all that.